Justice for Renee Good. Now, in the Western, when you get to the limits of society, there are two main figures that are standing there waiting for us. One who is larger than life and one who is less than alive. So this is John Wayne versus the Clint Eastwood man with no name figure, which in the Fallout TV show, the ghoul is clearly modeled after. What these are two versions of Freudian Death Drive. The ways in which humanity supersedes our own bodily limits, what's good for us, and what persists in this infinitude state, this psychic carrying on despite our limitations. So these are two sides of the same coin, but they do things differently. The easiest model here is Alien. It is both the perfect organism, this huge overabundance of life, and it leaves behind these residue puddles of slime that are corrosive and cause reality itself to disintegrate. A stain that can't be wiped away. So you have these contradictory elements within the same thing. So with John Wayne, we have a figure who's larger than life and does not fit the frame of everyday reality, literally. He has to be on the outskirts of society, and his heroism is always in a sort of not fitting in. So in Searchers, his vitality is the excess of violence that he falls into, which does save the day, is dangerous, but when you come home at the end, he can't actually enter into the home himself. He has to wander off into the sunset. He can't be part of the family that he helps found again. In Liberty Valance, he saves the day by preserving law and allowing for elections to take place and for statehood to advance, but he can't enjoy it himself. He gives up his own dream and his home, and his story is only told after he's passed away. In Stagecoach, his heroism is what helps everyone survive, but he's destined for prison, and when he sets things right at the end of the film, he's only allowed to live a life where he's off in a homestead with an improper love object, a lady of the night, and so he's able to get his happy ending, but his happy ending is outside of society. Now, with Clint Eastwood and Fistful of Dollars in particular, we are not at the formation of society at its limits, but society in a completely undone state. So this is, properly speaking, post-apocalyptic. Now, I used to think that the Clint Eastwood stories are, with their constant, looking each other in the eyes and then drawing your guns, like that is a version of getting to social antagonism, the ways in which we're, without the cover of society, we're at each other's throats. And there's a version of that I engage entirely in Where We've Made It Dark. Like you cross paths with someone and you're exposed radically. It doesn't mean that you go guns blazing though. And the Clint Eastwood films really just are constant, just guns blazing, bam, 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 bam. And honestly, it's there's an excess there that the whole thing is feeding on, which I have no interest in my work. But what the Rojos have made of the town is specifically a monstrous thing. This proto-mythic pre-society. What they've done is taken the family unit, there's a family in the town, and stolen the wife and turned her into their own precious thing. So they've gone after the family unit, the embodiment of society itself, taken its precious inner core and stolen it. That's what the story is. That's what's actually going on. It's not about these two rival gangs. The other gang doesn't really matter. Now, the one thing Clint Eastwood does in Fistful of Dollars that John Wayne would never do is play with corpses. There is a thing in Searchers, but whatever. So what Clint Eastwood's main gambit to get these two gangs after each other is to set up two corpses, make them look like they're real, and then get them both to fight over the guys. And so there's this cannibalism to it, this sort of like making you play with corpses, being, on the level of the corpse. So Eastwood's trickery is analogous to getting someone to become a cannibal and, show this mirror image of you are this thing that's beneath society itself, basically. And when he makes his other main gambit of saving the family unit and he's ruthlessly beaten, Eastwood becomes the corpse himself. He crawls around mutilated, throughout the latter half of the film. He's under floorboards, and when he recovers and goes out, he's literally lying in a coffin with the coffin maker, peeking out of it, watching everything unfold throughout a lot of the film. And in the Fallout TV show, we're introduced to the ghoul in a coffin as well. He's been kept there, barely alive for a long time, and he comes right out of it. So we're at this base slime level of things, this way in which humanity can't quite die. It's improper that we haven't yet given up the ghost. That's what Eastwood and the ghoul are both doing. This is very different from the John Wayne figure that is a prop of society, helps society become what it is, even though he can't become part of it himself. He's an extimate, support structure. The Clint Eastwood ghoul figure is not a support structure to society, and there's nothing you can do with this slimy puddle. The state of being slime can lead to doing something ethical, like saving the family unit, but you can't build yourself up from that. It's not like the John Wayne move of, taking your heroic action in order for something to be, and then wandering off. The heroic action of Clint Eastwood is just a thing. So when the Rojos lose the woman that they've stolen, they lose their consistency of self. They become the slime that we've already seen with Clint Eastwood. They lash out with this impotent violence that destroys the entire town around them. They annihilate the rival gang. They torture and imprison the innkeeper. They want Clint Eastwood to reveal himself, and when he does, he reveals himself as a corpse. And his big heroic gambit as well is to not fall down and die when he's properly shot in the heart. That's his trick. So again, this spectral, slimy persistence of life is what we're getting to here, and that's what undoes the Rojos. Just like the femme fatale is undone when she is confronted by the hero of noir. So she's this fantasy structure of the hero that gets rejected in the end, and she turns to a puddle of slime. That's how noir works. You either fall into her maelstrom fantasy undoingness, or she is undone and rejected. Fistful of Dollars does not show society at its base level, or what comes before society. That's mythic. That's something we presuppose and tell ourselves phantasmatically as a thing that comes before society. So what the Rojos are doing is playing with this fantasy of being something psychotically whole before society or without society. So that's what we're fighting and dissolving as Clint Eastwood. So you literally can't go back in this situation and get to something before society or without society here. You're forming this fantasy structure in its place in that gap. You can't go back and get this thing. It's not possible. The genuine act of getting to who we are without world has to be done without these fantasy structures. And that's what I do in Where We've Made It Dark.